Good morning, it's Media Center Ukraine Odesa, and we are happy to introduce our guest. It's Associate Professor of Kongju National University, Professor Lim Eunjung. She is with us online at the moment. Hello, Professor. Hello, do you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Great.
Good morning there.
Great. Good morning to you. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
And what do you think about the recent visit of the President of the Republic of Korea to Ukraine? What were the aims and the tasks of this visit? How do you see it?
Well, I think I already prepared my own remarks about my own analysis and the general observations about President Yoon's visit. So I think probably I can move on to the my analysis. Can I?
Surely, you are totally welcome.
Okay, sure. Thank you. Again, but before I really begin, let me just, again, to deliver my gratitude to the Media Center Ukraine for having me today. Again, I just heard that there was another attack in Odessa, so I truly hope everyone remains safe. And it is, again, a great honor, of course, and at the same time, a great responsibility for me. And I heard that, again, I'm the first, again, guest speaker from South Korea. So I feel very much like, big responsibility. But I must emphasize that I am, again, working as a professor at a national university in South Korea. And as a just international political scientist, I'm analyzing those things. However, I don't have, any position in the government. So I am not in a position to speak for the South Korean government, nor am I in a position to know the details of my government's plans. So basically, I must reiterate this again, what I say today in front of you, again, the honorable journalist from Ukraine and from the rest of the world. This is basically my just individual analysis and my personal view. And again, Mr. Mikhail, you already gave me some general questions. And Mr. Anatoly Kosin, who invited me to this event, kindly sent me another a few questions beforehand. So basically, for 15 minutes, I'd like to just talk based on those questions I already have. And, again, I will share my own analysis and observation, if you don't mind. And first and foremost, it's worth mentioning that the political situation in South Korea is very, very much divided, as much as it is in the United States. In the U.S., Democratic Party, Republican Party, they are deeply divided by the so-called identity politics, which was highlighted by the Dr. Francis Fukuyama, who has been actually my academic mentor for many years. However, anyhow, those identity politics is getting intensified in the United States, and then public opinion too is very much divided. Just like that. Again, likewise, here in Korea as well, it's pretty much divided and polarized. Probably this is, kind of inevitable phenomena in a country like the U.S. and South Korea with a presidential system. In the case of South Korea, however, the situation, the phenomena is getting more increasingly severe, so-called the hyper-polarization, hyper-political politicization, hyper-politicization and polarization of the public opinion is really getting more and more severe in this country. So one big reason why behind this is the reality that we face, again, that we are a divided nation. So how to view North Korea, the other Korea, DPRK, is still a controversial and contested issue in our society. North Korea has been a constant threat to our freedom and peace. And very early in this morning, as you already know, North Korea fired another two ballistic missiles into East Sea. And last week, it launched another ICBM called Hwasong 18. And this time, even ASEAN countries collectively condemned this. As these events continue to occur, the current Yoon government and conservative public opinion groups keep emphasizing the deterrence with the U.S., but the other group are concerned about the security dilemma or arms race in the region, and intensified confrontation between the two triangle. One is continental, right? North Korea, China, and Russia, versus the other angle as triangle is like Pacific, again, the US, Japan, and Korea. So these debates, the reason why I mention these things at the front of my talk is these debates and confrontations are also reflected or even projected in how we see the situation or the war in Ukraine. So President Yoon has traveled to Kyiv and as well as to Bucha and Irpin last week, and it apparently looks like he was very deeply saddened by the devastation of the war. The Yoon government has actually every Tuesday they do have a weekly cabinet meeting, and yesterday was another cabinet meeting. And before actually the cabinet meeting begins, President as the chair delivers his remark. And yesterday, President Yoon he spoke with a pretty shaky voice about how serious the situation is and why we should stand in solidarity with Ukraine. I personally found it very moving and touching, and I felt very sympathetic with the Ukrainian people. However, I'm sorry, I feel very bad to say this, especially at the front of the Ukrainian friends and colleagues. However, there are also pretty good number of naysayers in the society. Actually, very unfortunately, the timing was particularly bad. You might have heard this, but South Korea was hit by just huge, again, heavy, so much rain, over the past week, and the flooding has been severe across the country. So while South Korea is, of course, not the only country facing all this challenge by climate change, we need to adapt the adaptation to the climate change. This is definitely kind of challenge to any country. However, in this country as well, the natural disaster caused by climate change are becoming increasingly severe every year. And the damage, especially this year, has been so serious and wide, again, across the country, that some have even criticized President Yoon for suddenly changing his plans to return home and going to Ukraine. Of course, there are many other people, including myself, who think that it is, very logical and natural for President Yoon to visit Ukraine because he went to Poland, which was just next door to Ukraine after the NATO meeting in Lithuania's capital, Vilnius. When the First Lady Zelenska visited South Korea, she kindly invited President Yoon, and he was invited again by President Zelensky when they met at the Hiroshima G7 summit meetings in May. So he responded it with sincerity, I think. However, on the other hand, there are also voices criticizing the fact that the president delayed his return when there was so much damages in his country. So there are also growing concerns about whether we are getting too deeply involved in a war elsewhere. Korea, has never invaded or attacked any other country in our history. We are very peace-loving people, and who have survived multiple foreign invasions and built a prosperous and free society. However, as an ally of the United States, and also as a way of giving back what we received from international society during the Korean War, we have been involved in several wars and conflict zone over the past 2 decades. The Vietnamese War is obviously a prime example. And the Gulf War broke out in the 1991. South Korea deployed our own troops for the first time ever since the Vietnam War. In 1993, we deployed the Evergreen Unit to Somalia as the UN peacekeeping force. In 2000, Evergreen Unit was dispatched to East Timor. In 2002, Dong-i Unit was dispatched to Afghanistan to provide medical support and epidemic prevention activity. Or in addition, Seohi Unit, a construction engineering support group, was dispatched to Iraq in 2003, and the Zaitun Unit, a civil support unit, in 2004. And in 2007, the Dongmyeong Unit was dispatched to Lebanon to carry out some missions as well. In 2009, the Cheonghae Unit was dispatched to Somalia. So what I'm trying to say is, as such, as I just listed off, South Korea has been fulfilling its responsibility as a member of the international community. And we have been trying to be a guardian of peace. However, the war in Ukraine has the potential to be much more controversial and contentious than any other case we've experienced before, because this specific war was started by Russia and no one else. And Russia is the country that directly borders the Korean Peninsula. Furthermore, Russia and North Korea's behavior since the war erupted again has been increasingly alarming. Since Russia invaded Ukraine, again, North Korea has consistently defended Russia. In addition to that, again, train movements believed to be connected with arms trading have been detected on the North Korea-Russia border near the Tuman River. And the North Korean regime, it looks like the North Korean regime continues to support Russia despite international isolation and economic difficulty because it judges this to be more advantageous for their survival. So having had this kind of, again, the situation, maybe China's leverage even on North Korea can be weakened by Russia's growing influence over North Korea. North Korea has practiced this kind of strategy, again, tug of war-like play between China and Russia, even in the era of Cold War. So this is not even the first time. So in the midst of intensified strategic competition between US and China, the South Korean government has chosen more like a strategic clarity over the strategic ambiguity. And our government has been pretty much clear about its position in the Russia-Ukraine war as well. But issues such as, providing lethal weapons, lethal arms directly, or like transferring those from a third country, these kind of issues can be very volatile in our domestic political landscape, to be very honest with you. So it's extremely difficult to say for sure. So, before his state visit to the United States in April, as you probably remember, President Yoon had an interview with the Reuters, and he told that it would be difficult to insist on just humanitarian aid if there was another, like a more very serious situation like massacre in Ukraine. His remarks actually had a pretty big repercussion in this society. And recently, when a classified US government document showing that the South Korea would provide hundreds of thousands of artillery shells to the US on a rental basis was circulated, leaked online. Again, it also caused political controversy. So according to the media reports, the U.S. purchased 100,000 155 millimeter shells from South Korea last November. And this February, again, it also just, requested another like 120,000. However, since we can't, say there's no, zero chance that Korean weapons exported to a third country like the United States or even Poland will also end up in the Ukraine war, and there are growing concerns about made in Korea artillery shells like weapons being used in the war. So many Koreans, South Korean people are worried that we can aggravate, Russia, again, the regional power, global power, too much, prompting Japan to retaliate by imposing sanctions against us, like, energy export control, or even, they might provide advanced weapons to North Korea. So, many of us are still very much deeply concerned about that kind of possibility. And it is also true that there is a fear of supporting something that can undermine our deterrence capacity as well. So in short, it is my personal judgment that it would be tremendously difficult for the South Korean government to be much more active than now, again, especially in terms of direct lethal weapon support. Actually, 2 days ago here in Korea today, of course, over there too, as 19. But on 17, this Monday, the Ministry of National Defense of Korea says there has been no change in the government's policy of not supporting lethal weapons in response to the presidential office's announcement of increased material support to Ukraine. So Defense Ministry spokesman, his name is Chun Ha-gyu, said that the government has been actively considering providing demining equipment, emergency transport vehicle, and more in response to the Ukraine's request. Of course, it cannot be overemphasized that close consultation with the United States is mandatory and necessary in any circumstances. South Korea's role, I think, can be probably more prominent after dust settles. South Korea can certainly play a big role in reconstruction as well as in the reconfiguration of weapon system for the Ukraine's future deterrence capability. So yeah, having said that, I think I spent enough time to deliver my analysis. So if you have any further comments or questions, I'd love to respond to those. Thank you for your attention.
Well, first of all, thank you for the brilliant report, giving us insights and details about what is going on in the Korean society and around the Korean authorities. Because here in Ukraine, we are not very aware about the context of the decisions which are being made, are not being made by Korean government and Korean politicians. So, first of all, thank you for this analysis and your text. Thanks. What I wanted to ask is, as you mentioned, Republic of Korea managed to build a prosperous and free society, but it was also a strong society. I mean, you went through the very big war about 70 years ago. You went through that and you built a powerful army, a powerful system of security for your country. And despite the part of the Korean territory, which is now it's called Democratic Republic of Korea, it's still in the north and it's still a threat. And the leaders of this state are launching missiles which can be dangerous not only for the Korean Republic but also for Japan and other Pacific states. And but we here in Ukraine, we are in the situation when we cannot limit ourselves to defend, because if we don't start to hit Russian territory or Russian infrastructural or military objects with the missiles, what do they do at the moment, like this night, a few dozens of them, we will not be able to survive as a state and as a country. That is why my only follow-up question for your report will be, what are the ways that Ukrainian society, Ukrainian media, Ukrainian governmental officials can persuade not maybe the Republic of Korea government, but people of Republic of Korea, because really the voices are on the both sides, and your vulnerabilities which make you not supporting in the military ways is understandable. But maybe there are ways to persuade the Korean society and to show that for Ukraine at the moment the military support of the all civil developed world is crucial and necessary. It's a united support. Do you have any ideas on that?
Yeah, I know it's very difficult situation and difficult question for me. Well, to be very honest, again, South Korea, as you just said, we have strengthened our military capability, especially army. Because if we record 73 years ago when they came down, just like Russia did last year, Basically our troops, our military systems are have been designed and have been focusing on all this battle on the ground. Um, our capacity has been focusing on that. And of course, including myself, I also thought that, this is too much, that kind of war, Korean war, like very much conventional war, might not be happening in the 21st century. So until when do we have to spend this much energy and monies and manpower to army? Probably we need to restructure our system or even downsize because Korea is such a aged society already, and we need to consume more for the welfare and so on. So having had all this kind of social demands, it has been politically, financially, socially challenging to have that size of army. However, that was probably not a wrong decision because again, I feel very bad to say this again in front of the Ukrainian people. But last year, that moment was, I'm sorry too. It was eye-opening to Korean people too, and we felt like, we consumed that much money and then much time, then much blood. But still, it was kind of deterrence. Of course, ROG-US alliance is one big thing. I won't say, without ROG-US alliance, South Korea was even able to survive until today. So in that sense, as you just mentioned, unity, solidarity, with the supportive groups and powerful partners is indispensable. However, at the same time, we also sacrificed a lot, and all this like a kind of conventional threat does not disappear. And in that sense, again, even though our army was pretty much consuming institution, but still, I also think it was effective enough to deter further major war in the peninsula. So having said all the things, probably peace agreement kind of, option. Again, I feel very bad to talk about even possibility of this, because, this year it is 70th anniversary of armistice of the Korean War. And our first president, Dr. Lee Seung-man, he was super against the armistice too. He just, said march north. That was the only way to unify all the Korean people. Whenever we see North Korea threatening us, we can say that armistice was really the best choice. However, 70 years later, whenever we see the contrasting situation between South and North, well, at least I can say that was really the worst choice. At least, we saved half of the peninsula. Again, Ukrainian people, of course, you have your own decision, and definitely will remain supportive. However, at some point, probably some decisions should be made. As I mentioned earlier, I think South Korea can help a lot when, especially after the dust settles. I don't think I answered very well to that specific question. But we know, again, the South Korea, we know how to restore, how to revitalize, and how to defend, and how to deter the major war. So as long as we have technology, information, know-hows, knowledge, I think our experience can definitely be helpful for Ukraine too.
Thank you for your answer, and again, thanks for being with us and giving us the information and understanding of the context of the processes which are going inside your country. Hope to see you here online or offline if you decide to visit Ukraine and Odesa. That was a big pleasure talking to you.
Thank you. Please be safe, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. That was the briefing of the Korean professor Jin Ling. I hope I pronounced her name correctly. Our next briefing is going to happen in 15 minutes. It's going to be dedicated to the future of the grain treaty and the possible alternative routes for Ukrainian grain to leave the country and to get to the international market. Stay with us.